Supposedly, over the past couple of days, a new mystery candidate has emerged here in this Penn State coaching search. So who is it? Well, I can tell you who it's not.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. You are locked on to Penn State football, and thank you so much for checking out another edition of Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily source for all things Penn State sports. My name is Zach Seyko, and I'm your host of the show, credentialed media member for both Penn State football and Penn State wrestling. I'm really thankful for each and every one of you. I want to give my thanks to all of you, especially if you're joining me here on a holiday. So I hope you're having a fantastic, safe, happy, healthy Thanksgiving. We're going to talk about in this show who Penn State should hire. Final predictions for this next Penn State football coach, the direction that this search is trending in, because I don't think Pat Kraft and Penn State fully understood how this could potentially go. But a new mystery candidate has emerged for Penn State. That's where we're going to begin. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section here. As Josh Pate alluded to this, not only on X, but talked about it in his show, saying he knows who the mystery candidate is, didn't give a name. So let's get to the bottom of it. Okay. I can definitely tell you who it's not. I'm also going to give you my guesses as to who it might be, because there is a logical explanation here. So I've seen names thrown around because an interesting hint was dropped by Pate. Okay. That can lead us to that potential coach. But this coach, the mystery candidate, is it Marcus Freeman? Is it Dabo Swinney? Is it Lincoln Riley? Right? And then there's one other name that I think, and it's part of my guess. And well, it can't be any of those names, because the one hint that Josh Pate gave is that this coach has not been really linked to any coaching jobs. Oh, okay. So that kind of gives us an idea. And other people have speculated. Again, I'm on the internet. I see the message boards and I have conversations with people. Okay, who is this? Who is this guy? And the understanding is it's a college football coach, which would make a ton of sense. Plus, coupled with the fact that this candidate allegedly has not been linked to any other jobs strongly. Okay. Well, that kind of takes Marcus Freeman off the board, right? Because he's been linked to the Florida job publicly, right? There have been dozens of candidates that actually takes their name off the board. So Dabo Swinney, I guess, would fit this category because he's not being really linked to anywhere. I guess I see the jokes that, he's going to go to Arkansas, he's going to leave Kansas, but the candidates that are publicly, right, going on the record, being reported. So Lane Kiffin, Marcus Freeman, those truly big name candidates don't fit this description. My initial guess on this was Jed Fisch, until there were a couple of those other hints that, okay, now why would it be Jed Fisch? Well, Jed Fisch actually isn't that crazy of a candidate, and I know things are trending for him to potentially end up at Florida. Who knows at the end of the day? But he is a Florida grad and everything else, but he is originally from New Jersey. He is from the East Coast. And Jed Fisch as a coaching candidate, I think that Penn State is a better job. That would be a step up for him. It also needs to check the logical boxes, right? That if a candidate is going to be linked to Penn State, either from afar or actually there is genuine interest, it has to be a step up for them. So, or a lateral move. And initially when I said, hey, Mike Elko would be a prime candidate for Penn State, and he was. It's the same thing for Kalen DeBoer, because while A&M and Alabama may be better, it's not like they're significantly better. It's not like Penn State is an afterthought in this conversation. They are comparable in some regards, but yes, I would agree that Texas A&M and Alabama are definitively better than Penn State, but the gap isn't that wide. So those coaching candidates, Marcus Freeman, why would he leave a stable situation at Notre Dame, or the people that have thrown out Ryan Day? Okay, that's mostly a message board thing, but why would he leave arguably the best job in college football to go to Penn State. Again, that's objectively speaking. Ohio State, financially and for a lot of other reasons, why would he leave Penn State for Penn State? So the names that I've kind of ultimately settled on, okay, Jed Fisch, but he doesn't check that box because he's been publicly linked to Florida. And it seems like things are trending in that direction. So that kind of leaves us with a few other coaching candidates. Sonny Dykes was one that was mentioned quite a bit. Okay, he's not being linked to any other schools. He's a sitting college football coach at TCU. But then there's the report that TCU is looking to potentially move on from Dykes, that it was a flash in the pan. It was a one-hit wonder type of situation, and it certainly looks to be the case. So why would Sonny Dykes be on Penn State's radar? Sonny Dykes might want the Penn State job, but why would Penn State want Sonny Dykes purely off of a Cinderella run back in 2022 when TCU's getting ready to fire him? Okay, if you want to believe that it's Sonny Dykes, so be it. I don't think it is. I think Jed Fisch was potentially that mystery candidate, but again, doesn't check that box of someone who hasn't been strongly linked to other jobs. Okay. Then there's Dabo Swinney. Dabo Swinney would kind of check that box. He hasn't been strongly linked. Lincoln Riley. Okay. There's maybe speculation that USC wants to move on. Again, I've talked about that in a recent crossover show with Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers. Here's the intriguing name, actually, that, again, a colleague of mine discussed. This isn't necessarily a report. Kalani Sitake. Well, I can see why Penn State would be interested in Sitake a ton. That makes that is a coaching candidate that has proven what you can do with the right amount of support, the right amount of resources, especially at a BYU. And I know it's in the Big 12. Now, I can see Penn State's interest in either of these names that we're trying to speculate and guess here. Jed Fisch or Kalani Sitake. But ultimately, again, why would Sitake logically want to leave BYU when they have ultra aggressive NIL? That's also his alma mater. And BYU is in a place where they can make the college football playoff. They can succeed within the Big 12. A stable situation at BYU, but to kind of risk that, to gamble that at Penn State is interesting to me. So those are the names that if I had to settle on who, I can tell you who it's not. It's not Marcus Freeman. It's not Lincoln Riley. It's not Dabo Swinney. It's not Ryan Day. If I had to settle on two, that one, Jed Fisch makes a ton of sense to me. But then when you throw in the wrinkle that, oh, this is a candidate that hasn't been linked anywhere else. I have not seen any reporting or let alone speculation. Again, Lincoln Riley also checks these boxes, but there's the speculation that USC would want to move on. There's the speculation that he would want to go to an LSU or a Florida. I don't know why he'd want to go to Penn State. He's a Texas guy. Born and raised in Texas, went to Texas Tech. I said on that other show that if USC is going to move on, there would need to be some other movement where he'd be interested in going back to his alma mater, or probably interested in going to the SEC because that's where he's familiar with. It's why Eli Drinkwitz never made sense to me at Penn State, even with all the supposed momentum with that coaching connection. So that's where I would have to settle that. The people that have suggested Kalani Sitake, I don't think are far off. And anybody else that thinks, hey, maybe, yeah, it's Jed Fisch is that mystery candidate, because this coaching search has not gone the way that I think Penn State anticipated. Okay. So I'm going to give you my final predictions as far as who it will be. And this mystery candidate is not a part of this discussion. I think that there were probably conversations and that Penn State said, hey, would you be interested? Because they've had to do their due diligence. They're also trying to craft an insurance plan. If what happens, what I think happens actually next, what I'm actually going to predict to happen doesn't come to fruition, and then Penn State's got to scramble. That's why Jed Fisch and Kalani Sitake, Penn State's emergency, you hit the emergency button. Those two coaches would make a ton of sense. So I'm going to give you my predictions as far as how this will actually unfold, because we get a decision next week. We're in the home stretch. What is this going to look like? Who are the names that are actually in serious consideration, not just speculation, mystery candidates that we can't name? We'll talk about it next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's right. $300 in bonus bets to use all across FanDuel on NBA basketball, NFL football, college football. Lines are available this weekend for Penn State versus Rutgers. Penn State is a sizable favorite here. They are 13.5. They are a 13.5 point favorite on the spread, minus 590 on the money line, plus 440 if you're thinking Rutgers for the upset. The total is set at 55.5. If you like those lines, you can bet them over at FanDuel.com and the FanDuel app. And remember, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Let's predict how this Penn State coaching search is going to wrap up. And I believe it's down to 3 candidates here. And we'll talk about that. I'll make my predictions how this is going to go. And then I will tell you who I do think they should hire at the end of the day. I'm going to tell you who they will hire. And then later on in the next segment, who Penn State should hire and why. But it's to explain the actual tangible situation with this Penn State coaching search. So the 3 names that it is realistically down to, and even if one of those candidates is unrealistic, there is a lot of momentum within Penn State circles that we want to get this done if the opportunity presents itself. So that is, maybe some people are, and I didn't mention him in the first segment too strongly, Kalen DeBoer, Bob Chesney, Terry Smith. Those are the 3 remaining candidates here. And then the emergency button, I think, would be Jed Fisch, Kalani Sitake. I'm not sure how those Jed Fisch, you can actually kind of see that. I actually understand that, which is why my mind immediately jumped to, Jed Fisch as an East Coast guy. Again, he did graduate from Florida, which makes sense with his interest in the Florida job, right? So there is power to coaching your alma mater. And that's why Kalani Sitake, so why would he leave BYU to go to an unfamiliar setup? But there is at least some geographical familiarity with a Jed Fisch. So I think that's the emergency button for Penn State, because can they push Washington or potentially Florida, depending on how that coaching search is going? Because I know they're still interested in Lane Kiffin. So that's the 4th candidate of an emergency. We have to salvage this coaching search because we did not think it would go this way. And a lot of it is timing based, right? All the teams that you thought you would be able to, or I guess one candidate in particular, is you are hoping for a disaster. 2 candidates. Kalen DeBoer fits that description, and so does Mike Elko. Texas A&M being undefeated and being a national title contender, that's Mike Elko, I think, was Penn State's, objectively speaking, was Penn State's top candidate overall. Made sense being a UPenn grad, being from New Jersey. He has the regional connections and everything. He's recruited well from the area to Texas A&M. But when you are undefeated, when you are a strong national title contender, that's going to be difficult for Penn State to convince him away from the Aggies. But it's different with Kalen DeBoer because he's kind of teetering that line of, okay, Mike Elko, all things were good in Texas A&M and College Station. But we can say this with confidence that not all things are settled in Alabama and Tuscaloosa. Alabama people, fans, the powers that be, I can speak for them, most of them would want Lane Kiffin as their coach. There are a lot of teams, there are a lot of programs that want Lane Kiffin, but if it came down to it, no strings attached, who would you want coaching your team next season? A majority of them, a strong majority of them would say Lane Kiffin. My point being is that Penn State is looking to capitalize on that. I've been consistent with it. This is true from the Penn State perspective, is that Penn State is willing to wait out a Kalen DeBoer disaster, an Alabama disaster, where they lose the Iron Bowl, where they're 9-3. They built these insane recruiting classes. They gave Kalen DeBoer everything he could ask for in this situation, and he fumbles it twice because they didn't make the postseason a year ago. They wouldn't make the postseason again, even though they're against top 25 teams. They're 4-1. They only have one loss in conference play at the time of this recording, and they're going to miss the postseason again, potentially at 9-3, and then losing to Auburn in the Iron Bowl when that is a bad Auburn team, right? They're going through a rebuild. They're going through a coaching search. So this is where it gets intriguing. If Alabama does lose, I think part of the reason Alabama fans or people in the media there's an arrogance to it, because it assumes that Kalen DeBoer would leave for Penn State. Well, if you push him out, or you put some pressure on him, why wouldn't Kalen DeBoer want to leave? Because I agree that if all things are great and it's sunny over there in Tuscaloosa, then Kalen DeBoer is not going to leave Alabama for Penn State. The same thing that I said about Marcus Freeman or Ryan Day or anybody else, right? But that's not the situation. Kalen DeBoer and Alabama are kind of sitting back and saying, okay, what's going to happen? When the dust finally settles, if it's a win against Auburn, you get to the postseason, they'll make the SEC championship. Win or a loss, they're in the college football playoff one way or another. Then there's no Kalen DeBoer to Penn State. And then if that doesn't happen, then Penn State's going to pivot to Bob Chesney. But Penn State's leading candidate, even though while it seems unrealistic, because who would think Alabama would lose to Auburn? There's still a chance. And if that happens, I can see Alabama wanting to push Kalen DeBoer out and going and making a push for Lane Kiffin. You push out DeBoer to go get Lane Kiffin, which that would appease a ton of people in Tuscaloosa and probably be best for them in the long haul. I've heard rumors since the beginning that Kalen DeBoer and Alabama just have not been a fit. He'd be back in the Big Ten. He succeeded at Washington. There's no reason to believe that DeBoer can't succeed at Penn State. So that is the primary candidate. If there is an actual disaster, Penn State's going to get Kalen DeBoer from Alabama. If there is no disaster, they're going to go with Bob Chesney. And Bob Chesney, I think, is waiting for Penn State to make its decision, because he will end up at UCLA if Penn State doesn't hire Chesney. Kalen DeBoer, they win. Alabama, they go to the SEC championship. Penn State's not going to wait for them through the postseason. They got to work recruiting. They got to try to get a head start on the transfer portal. So Bob Chesney would be that next candidate. Makes a ton of sense. And, I'll talk about this a little more in the upcoming segment with who Penn State should hire. Bob Chesney checks a lot of boxes. But in the scheme of things here, of what's actually going to happen, what I am predicting to happen is that if it's not Kalen DeBoer, it's going to be Bob Chesney. He's from Central Pennsylvania. I think he would fit in very well for obvious reasons, right? He's been in the DMV area, right? Being at James Madison actually helps his case out a lot, since he has now recruiting ties within the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. Of course, Pennsylvania, because he's been there. And he, like Mike Elko, would have an appreciation for the university, even though he isn't a graduate. Now, things go really haywire here. Kalen DeBoer and Alabama win. They move on. Bob Chesney, for whatever reason, wants the sunnier skies in Los Angeles and takes the UCLA job, even though Penn State is significantly better than UCLA, objectively speaking, as a job. Would Terry Smith be the next candidate from there? Because I said the emergency is trying to get into a bidding war for Jed Fisch. Terry Smith, I still don't think Penn State can go wrong with him. He should be Penn State's third option. I would lean Kalen DeBoer over everybody else. And I'm already getting into it with this conversation. So Terry Smith is still there as a potential candidate. Let's talk about that further. Kalen DeBoer, Bob Chesney, Terry Smith. or somebody like Jed Fisch? Who do I think, if I was in Pat Kraft's position, who would I try to hire? That is coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And today's episode is brought to you by Omaha Steaks. The holidays always feel a little easier when you already know the perfect gift. And Omaha Steaks makes it almost too simple. Whether you're treating yourself this season or sending something memorable to friends and family, Omaha Steaks delivers handcrafted perfection right to your door. And this week is the best time to jump in because their cyber sale is here and the deals, they are huge. I've been given an Omaha Steaks as a gift before, and I always enjoy that as a holiday present. The excitement when the box arrives, and the quality is exactly what you're hoping for. Incredibly tender steaks, rich flavor, and meals that make hosting or weeknight cooking even easier. The variety is underrated. Steaks, burgers, comfort meals, sides, desserts. It's one of those gifts that truly fits for anyone. And honestly, it's the kind of gift that brings people together. So save big on unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and add an extra 20% off select favorites during their cyber sale. And for an additional $35 off, use promo code COLLEGE at checkout. Promo code COLLEGE. Again, that's omahasteaks.com, promo code COLLEGE. Terms apply. See site for details. Let's assume I have all the power. I am making the head coaching decision for Penn State. This is a lot of fun, just thinking about it. What would I do in Penn State and Pat Kraft's position? What they're doing presently with what they have right now, because it was going after and trying to swing for Marcus Freeman and Mike Elko. Again, since those aren't realistic, there is the door is cracked open to go and get Kalen DeBoer, if that is the case and Alabama falls apart. So I co-sign that. Everything that I discussed about a Kalen DeBoer and everything else, it makes a ton of sense for Penn State. You got to go with Kalen DeBoer because he's proved, well, he's not winning at Alabama. Not everything's a perfect fit. You're not going to win at every destination. I don't think Lane Kiffin is an ideal candidate for Penn State. I'm glad that never materialized because I don't think Lane Kiffin in Penn State would work out. It's the same thing with Eli Drinkwitz. You have a niche. You belong sometimes you just belong at a certain school in a certain conference. Lane Kiffin and Alabama, that is an ideal match. That is a perfect match. Maybe it's Lane Kiffin and LSU, right? So like James Franklin and Virginia Tech. There are certain things that make a coach and a program work together very well. And for Kalen DeBoer and Penn State, that's going to be a better match than Kalen DeBoer in Alabama. Okay, you can give him all the resources there. It just might not work in Tuscaloosa. But he succeeded at Washington. Washington's still a really good program. That's not me trying to dismiss them, but that's to say, look at how he elevated them. It wasn't just being a fringe college football playoff contender or anything like that. He took them to a national title, won against Texas. They weren't that great in the title game themselves. Again, Michigan just overpowered them there in that instance. They beat Oregon and Dan Lanning multiple times. Why wouldn't Penn State want Kalen DeBoer? That's my top candidate. I agree. When it gets down to the next tier of Bob Chesney, of Terry Smith, I don't have any qualms with Penn State hiring Terry Smith. Bob Chesney, the biggest drawbacks there are that he's never led a Power 4 program. And again, the argument can be made that it's not even Power 4 anymore. It's Big 10 and SEC versus Big 12 and ACC. The Penn State job is going to be a massive jump for him to go from Holy Cross in Division II to JMU, James Madison, to Penn State. Now, I am in the belief that you can build a foundation. You have to give the coaches the resources that are necessary. And I'm not talking about dollars and cents. I'm talking about help them with the areas where they are not best at. Maximize their strengths, minimize their weaknesses. So when we talked about a candidate like Brian Hartline, well, how is he going to be able to manage a program and do this and that when he's never been a full-time play caller for more than a season? What does he do well? He recruits well. He develops talent well. Maximize that and go get really strong coordinators. When it comes to Terry Smith and Bob Chesney, respectively, I would actually put Terry Smith above Bob Chesney because I think there is value. I think there is significance in being a Penn State grad. What Terry Smith said when he understands the nature of Penn State, that he would be able to create alignment that we truly haven't seen under James Franklin. James Franklin talked about alignment a ton, yet we never actually saw it. We only heard about it, and then we come to find out that there was really no alignment at all, or else he wouldn't have been fired, right? Terry Smith, I think, can bridge all those different sections of Penn State between the donors, the powers that be, the lettermen, the administration, the fans, the community, everybody. There is value in that. I like the idea of somebody who appreciates the university for what it is because they went there, they played there, and Terry Smith's got a little bit of an attitude that I like to him. You know, you see it in the press conferences. He's soft spoken, he's honest, he's genuine, but then behind the scenes, this guy is a fireball. He's got attitude. It's almost like a switch flips, and I do like that a lot about Terry Smith, and you see why the team is so energized. So the people that make the argument, well, Bob Chesney, he's a good candidate. I like that he's from Central Pennsylvania. I like that he has won every step of the way. You would need to give him an extended timeline because I don't think he's going to come into the Big Ten and win right away. He'll bring a lot of players with him, but I don't think that Chesney will be 10-2, 11-1, playing for the top of the conference right out of the gate. There are going to be some growing pains. Terry Smith's condition for him, you go with, I think that it should go from Kalen DeBoer to Terry Smith under the condition that he's able to keep most of this program together. This is a talented roster. Even with all the seniors moving on, Terry Smith has shown that he can lead. He has more proof. He has more evidence that he can lead a big-time program than Bob Chesney does. In 1 month, he's turned it completely around. Well, it's Nebraska, it's Michigan State, and eventually it'll be, it's just Rutgers. We didn't see any of this against Nevada, FIU, and Villanova. So don't give me that. Those are not just easy wins. This is a team that had nothing to play for. They had nothing to be motivated for. Bowl eligibility. When this team, a lot of seniors are looking towards the NFL. You think they care about a bowl game at 6-6? No, Terry Smith made radical changes, and they were all correct. He did not make one bad chess move. And that is more proof to me that he can lead a program like Penn State. He's been the associate head coach. He's been in a better position to understand all the workings of Penn State than Bob Chesney. If it's not Kalen DeBoer, I would go with Terry Smith and give him a 5-year contract, not an insane salary, right? I don't, honestly, the numbers at the end of the day, Penn State has the resources to be able to do what it needs to do to be competitive with NIL, with everything else. Okay. But you can go with Terry Smith. My prediction is that if it's not Kalen DeBoer, it's Bob Chesney. What I would do if it's not Kalen DeBoer, I would go with Terry Smith. And if Terry Smith wants a head coaching job, so it really doesn't get past that at that point in time. Terry Smith has proven to me that he can motivate players. He can coach football. James Franklin was a CEO, and you can see the net results of that being a CEO only gets you so far. I think Penn State should hire a strong football coach, an X's and O's guy, and then create a department where you have ambassadors that understand NIL and you have a general manager. Let the coach and go get another actual CEO to help you out. I like the potential alignment, but that's on the condition is that alignment is that actually there, not speculation, not anything else. If it's not there, then you go with Bob Chesney, because then what's the point? This roster is going to turn over. If there's going to be a bunch of coaches that leave, a bunch of players that leave, you're setting up Terry Smith for failure. The condition is that if Terry Smith's going to be the next head coach, he will keep most of this nucleus together, in addition to creating the alignment. If that is not actually there and Pat Kraft finds out through interviews and talking to players and the assistant coaches on staff, then don't go with Terry Smith. You go with Bob Chesney. But if it is there, and I think it is, then Terry Smith would be that next best candidate for Penn State. To each their own. Some people are just better fits for different programs, and that's okay. My name is Zach Seyko. Thank you so much. Really, I am truly thankful for each and every one of you. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you so much for spending a holiday with me to talk about all things Penn State sports here. And that's what we do on the show every single day. We talk about football. We talk about wrestling. We talk about all of it here on Locked On Nittany Lions. So if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts, please do that. We really appreciate it. Friendly reminder to let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. And until next time, we'll talk more Penn State football and everything else about your favorite teams right here on Locked On Nittany Lions.